Hello and welcome to School of Literature. My name is Roshan. In today's video, I will talk about one of my all-time favorite authors, Franz Kafka. The reason behind choosing Kafka is very simple. I have read almost all of Kafka's works and I do not like the present day's misuse of the term Kafkaesque. In this video, I will talk about Franz Kafka, some of his works, and the stormy after effects on the landscape of our modern world due to Kafka's published works. The word Kafkaesque is used to describe Franz Kafka's literary works. It is a term that has become synonymous with the complexities of our contemporary times. I think his most famous work, The Metamorphosis, would better explain the meaning of what Kafkaesque actually means. If you haven't read the short story and don't want any spoilers, you can read it and then come to this video. The opening scene of this short story introduces us to the world of Gregor Samsa, the famous central character of The Metamorphosis. The story begins like this. As Gregor Samsa awoke one morning from uneasy dreams, he found himself transformed in his bed into a gigantic insect. From the beginning of the story, you will find that the protagonist has lost control of his immediate surroundings. He is found trapped by what the ancient Greek playwright Sophocles might have called fate. Was it Gregor's mistake? I don't think so. But what I am quite sure about is that Gregor's transformation into a giant insect is pulling us into a Kafkaesque experience. The metamorphosis can be interpreted in many ways. It is often seen as a metaphor for the alienation and isolation resulting from societal pressure and its expectations. The story's Kafkaesque lies in its ability to capture the essence of an experience that defies easy description. The tragic trajectory of the metamorphosis is clear from the outset. Gregor Samsa, who was the family breadwinner, is criticized, physically harmed, isolated, and ultimately killed by his own family as they react with disgust and rage to his transformation. Kafka wrote this story in 1912 when he was 29. It was a time when the world was on the brink of a world war that eventually claimed millions of young lives. The parallels between Gregor's fate and the looming historical catastrophe are hard to ignore. Through Gregor's struggles in his insect body, you can see how his former life as a traveling salesman had imprisoned him in a deadly routine. You can witness his angry father abusing him, even as the old man retires to a life of leisure, which was supported by his son's docile labor. The story reveals that long before Gregor's physical transformation, his unpleasant father had disregarded and bullied him. It is important to remember that Gregor's metamorphosis is not a dream, an allegory, or a myth. It is a description of a man's deep-rooted inner turmoil. It is about a man who is treated with so little respect and given so little control over his own life that he might as well be an insect. As the story unfolds, Gregor experiences humiliation, shame, self-degradation, alienation, helplessness, loneliness, and rage at his condition. And these are the very emotions he had suppressed while in human form. It points to a critique of the overly ordered and repressed life of those who serve the system, fear authority, and bully each other while being bullied by the state and economic circumstances. From our vantage point in history, it is impossible not to see the metamorphosis as a chilling glimpse of the Holocaust. The dehumanization of Gregor Samsa eerily foreshadowed the way Jews would be portrayed as vermin, as pests threatening the body politic of the gentile world. The ultimate extermination of the Jews began with a campaign to make them seem non-human, not subject to normal laws of compassion and empathy. They were transformed in the public imagination into a crowd of Gregor Samsas, creatures that would be crushed without a second thought. This sense of a sudden and indescribable change is not just unique to the metamorphosis. It is what you will find across Kafka's work. For example, his novel The Trial begins like this. Someone must have been telling lies about Joseph K., for without having done anything wrong, he was arrested one fine morning. Again, you can see the same entrapment, a sudden and indescribable change. The opening lines of both his works immediately plunges the reader into a world where logic and reason seem to have abandoned the story's premise, and the characters have to navigate their ways into a treacherous and unfamiliar world that is almost beyond them. Franz Kafka might not have wanted his works to be published. In fact, he asked his dear friend Max Brod to destroy his unfinished works. Countless readers of Kafka, myself included, are indebted to Max Brod for ignoring his friend's will. I do not think anyone would have been able to explain the absurdity of this world we are in right now better than Kafka. His reluctance to be published is quite ironic if you see the impact his work has had on literature and our understanding of the modern condition. When writers create a world so distinct and pervasive across their works, these worlds often come to be known by the author's name. Just like Kafkaesque, we have Dickensian poverty, Orwellian surveillance, and Proustian nostalgia. We also have Byronic, Joycean, Miltonic, Chaucerian, Pintoresque, Woolfian, and Faulknerian. Each of these terms encapsulates something essential about the author's style or worldview. It would have been a grave injustice if the world of Gregor Samsa and Joseph K. would not have been called Kafkaesque. After all, nobody really describes the trappings of the modern world better than Franz Kafka. But you might ask, what exactly do we mean when we say something is Kafkaesque? First, let me clarify what it does not mean. Franz Kafka's biographer Friedrich Karl noted that the term has been misused to describe any unpleasant everyday experience. For instance, missing a bus is not Kafkaesque. Kafka's world is far more complex and unsettling than these simple inconveniences. To truly understand the Kafkaesque, you have to imagine entering a strange, unsettling world where everything you know and understand about the workings of the world begins to disintegrate. It is a world where your usual plans and modes of behavior no longer apply. You find yourself confronted by a power or force which is utterly alien to your experience. Yet, despite the impossibility of your situation where you are trapped, you do not give up. You continue to try, you use all your skills and tools to defeat this strange force. But deep down, you also know that your chances of success are practically non existent. And this is the essence of Kafkaesque. In simpler terms, the Kafkaesque describes being thrown into a bizarre and challenging world where everything feels confusing and the odds are always against you. Yet, even in such dire circumstances, you do not give up on your efforts because you have no other choice. And this is the core of Kafka's works. Whether we are considering the transformation of a man in the Metamorphosis, the starving artist in a hunger artist, the writing of sentences on prisoner's skin in the penal colony, or a harsh judgment passed by a father on his son in the Judgment, all of Kafka's stories are traps and they just depict a sense of confined helplessness. It is very important to understand that Franz Kafka's works are not meant for superficial reading. To truly understand his stories, you need to go deep into the characters' thoughts. You need to strive to understand their emotions and this intense sense of helplessness they are experiencing. It is as if Kafka did not want his readers just to read his works but to live within them, despite the difficulty this might pose for his readers. Kafka's letters to his close friend Oscar Polak will give you further insight into the elements of the Kafkaesque. In a letter to Polak, Kafka wrote that we should read books that wound and stab us. He meant that we should engage with such literature that brings strong emotions and challenges our ideas and understanding. If a book does not wake us up and provoke deep thought, Kafka argued that we should not bother reading it at all. He equated such books to an axe breaking through the frozen sea within us. This axe will help us to feel and understand our emotions more completely. Kafka's perspective on reading aligns perfectly with the experience of reading Kafka's own works. His stories have a powerful impact even when they make us uncomfortable or sad. They help us look into our emotions and think deeply about ourselves and the world around us. This experience is much like the axe breaking through ice that Kafka described. I am trying to explain what reading meant for Kafka to clear any doubts you might have about what Kafkaesque truly means. This term is often used carelessly or imprecisely. It is applied to situations that do not truly incorporate its essence. It is sometimes used with cavalier imprecision. It is applied to everything from minor bureaucratic annoyances to the worst atrocities in human history. Using Kafkaesque for both minor inconveniences and grave historical atrocities dilutes its meaning and significance. It is important to use words carefully and ensure that they accurately capture the intended meaning. In his book Franz Kafka, Representative Man, Friedrich Karl argues that Kafkaesque has become the representative adjective of our times. It defines us, it tells us what we are, what we can expect, and how the world works. To truly understand its meaning, Karl suggests one must read Kafka. Take the Metamorphosis for instance, a story about a man who wakes up as a giant insect. Through this bizarre premise, you will begin to understand the true nature of Kafkaesque. Similarly, The Trial, which some might consider as Kafka's best-known novel, depicts the Kafkaesque with its trappings based on misinformation. The story follows Joseph K., who despite his relentless pursuit of truth, is executed for an unspecified crime. In this world, time and space are malleable. It works either for or against the protagonist. The true horror here lies in the character's perpetual uncertainty about what is happening and when. This is the heart of Kafkaesque, an insistence on uncovering what can never be uncovered and recovering what can never be recovered. It is a world where the search for meaning becomes an endless, frustrating pursuit. Kafka's works have also been described as being multifaceted and complex. He presents what Frederick Carl described as the ultimate biographical challenge. To truly understand Kafka, I think one must approach his writings with a psychological perspective. His stories go deep into the human psyche. It explores the fears, anxieties, and absurdities of modern existence. Kafka's work can also be seen as a prophetic commentary on the course of history. As Carl notes, Kafka saw that history would roll over everybody, that everyone would become a victim of history. This too is Kafkaesque, this struggle against the persistent march of history, even as it threatens to destroy us. The power of the term Kafkaesque is its capacity to incorporate the nonsensical aspects of everyday life. Kafka's work has a lot of characters who are trapped in surreal, often unexplainable situations. At its core, the Kafkaesque represents a profound critique of modern institutions. Kafka's works question the idea that society should be built on pure logic and reason. He shows how trying to make everything efficient and orderly can actually make life less human and more lonely. So when we use the word Kafkaesque, our intention should not be just about describing a weird situation. We should also use it to warn about what can happen when rules and paperwork become more important than people. Kafka died at the age of 40 in 1924 after battling tuberculosis. We can only speculate about the novels and stories he might have written had he lived to see his nightmares become historical reality. What he did accomplish, though, was to reveal that beneath the forms of custom and culture, dress, habit, church, and economic order lie the dark, selfish particulars of human soul. Kafka strips away the pretense of civilization. He exposes the vicious reality of human connections, or at least what they can become under certain conditions. You can read his works not just as a prophecy of the Holocaust, but as a literary citing of the terror we can create and the beasts we can so easily become. Kafka, the great writer, has become the watchman calling out the hours of the night. He is warning us that all is not well. In conclusion, I want to tell you that the term Kafkaesque has entered our language in a unique and powerful way. It serves as shorthand for the experience where there is confusion, alienation, and helplessness in the face of incomprehensible systems. But Kafkaesque is more than just a descriptive term. It is a lens through which we can examine our own world, our institutions, and our place within them. As we navigate our increasingly complex and often bewildering world, Kafka's insights remain as relevant as ever. His works continue to challenge us, question our assumptions, and remind us of the absurdities and dangers inherent in our modern system. The next time you encounter a situation that seems illogical, oppressive, or nightmarishly complex, remember Franz Kafka. Remember the worlds he created, the characters he brought to life, and the truths he revealed about the human condition. And perhaps in that moment of recognition, you will truly understand what it means to be Kafkaesque. That's all I have for you in this video. I have added a few of Kafka's works in the description which I would recommend to you. Do pick them and let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I will see you super soon in my next video. Till then, keep reading and keep learning.